After a promising end to the 2024 season where Ferrari took McLaren all the way to the final race of the season for the title, and after all of the preseason hype, it has been a really disappointing start to the 2025 season for Ferrari and also for Charles Leclerc. They are 4th in the Constructors' Championship, they are actually ahead of Williams in 5th, which for some reason I find really funny, and in reality, their season so far is actually worse than the points total suggests, because Red Bull only have one driver scoring points, Antonelli is still learning and improving every single race, and Ferrari are still comfortably in no man's land in 4th place. Even going into the season, we all knew that Lawson in the second Red Bull seat and Antonelli in the Mercedes were going to be the biggest unknowns to start the season, and everyone felt as though during the early stages of 2025 that McLaren and Ferrari were going to be at an advantage compared to Red Bull and Mercedes due to the quality of their driver lineup. One side of that coin has managed to deliver on their preseason potential and are currently leading both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships, whilst all Ferrari have to show for is one sprint win with Lewis Hamilton in China and one podium for Charles Leclerc in Saudi Arabia last time out. And now I'm not going to talk too much about the issues that Lewis Hamilton is having with the car, because the issues that Leclerc is having with the car are kind of similar, but Lewis is also having to deal with a lack of familiarity with the team and also with the car characteristics, which is basically making his problem even more difficult compared to Charles'. This video is not me saying that the 2025 championship is already done and dusted and that Charles Leclerc has no chance of becoming the 2025 champion. But during a season where development is going to have to be cut off earlier than before because we are at the end of a regulation cycle, and during a season where the field is so tight, with the margin of error being so small to the point where basically pole position and turn 1 have decided every single race win so far this season, the one thing that Charles Leclerc did not need to start 2025 was yet again to be on the back foot and playing catch up to the likes of McLaren, Red Bull and Mercedes. Much to Leclerc's frustration, I think he's probably starting to get a little bit too familiar with that feeling of starting a season on the back foot, because when you look at Leclerc's career, which is almost 8 years now, it feels like a train that still has not managed to leave the station. Outside of Hamilton and Verstappen winning championships, no one else has been more deserving of a championship-winning car than Charles Leclerc, and yet he still hasn't really been able to fight for a world title since he joined Ferrari. Leclerc sometimes divides opinions because some people feel like his statistics, like the disparity between his poles and wins, makes him a little bit of an overrated driver, whilst others feel like his lack of achievements relative to his talent actually makes him underrated. If you want to know where I stand, then all you have to do is look where I have ranked him over the past few years and what I have said about him in my videos, and the fact is that last year behind Max Verstappen, I ranked him as the second best driver of 2024. There is no doubt that during the early part of his career, whilst his talent and raw speed was absolutely electric, he did have a bit of a tendency to push a little bit too much over the limit, and even as recently as 2023, I think it was fair to brand him as a bit of a crash-prone driver. And now this was partly down to the instability of the cars that he was driving, but it was also down to, as he himself has admitted on multiple occasions, chasing too hard for lap time and performance that just wasn't there in the first place. In 2024, however, we saw a Leclerc that in my mind was absolutely a complete driver. The raw speed that we know and loved was still there, but it was now harnessed with better judgment and almost perfect racing IQ. Whether it was winning in dominant style like he did in the US, or making a difficult tyre strategy work like he did in Monza, Leclerc showed his absolute range, that he was now fast enough, consistent enough, and smart enough under pressure to win every single type of race possible if he was given the car to do so. Behind Max Verstappen, who has been undoubtedly the defining driver of this generation, to me over the past 2 or 3 years, and even going back to 2019 when we first saw these guys go head to head, there is just no other driver who I think has consistently given me more confidence that they could challenge and beat Max in a fight for the World Championship than Charles Leclerc. Hamilton was there at the beginning, Alonso had a very brief moment in 23, Russell is still looking for his chance, Norris has never really been on Max's level, and even Piastri has only now started to prove himself. Leclerc, on the other hand, has given me this belief for years now that when he is finally put in the right circumstances, he is one of very few drivers in Formula 1 history who has got just as much talent and just as much mental strength to take on Max and come out on top. The problem has been the poison chalice of racing for Ferrari and having to compete against a team like Red Bull. Leclerc's career has been a total dichotomy because no one loves Ferrari more than Leclerc, and no one loves Leclerc more than Ferrari and the Tifosi. However, the promise and potential that sparked so bright at the beginning of his career has never quite been matched by the team itself. It's easy to look and criticize Red Bull now, given that key people are leaving the team, they're also starting to struggle with their car, and there is no doubt that their decline seems almost inevitable. But having said that, since 2019 when Verstappen established himself as the outright leader, and when Leclerc joined Ferrari to start this current generation of drivers, the golfing quality in terms of management, car development, reliability, race execution, consistency and operational mistakes between Red Bull and Ferrari has been enormous. Red Bull has been a well-oiled machine built completely around Verstappen, whilst at Ferrari, despite the speed, talent and passion that Leclerc has brought, and despite how much he wants to win a title for Ferrari, it is felt a lot of the times that he has been driving with basically one hand tied behind his back and a lot of the responsibility on his shoulders, whilst over at Red Bull, Max has just been able to focus his mental energy almost entirely on just driving because of how well organized the team has been around him. It seemed for years that if Red Bull were ever to falter, that it would be Ferrari and Leclerc who would rise to the challenge, and yet over the past year, although the team has made massive strides under Vasseur's leadership to shake that incompetent reputation that they had built in 2022 under Binotto, they have found themselves in a position where first McLaren and now even Mercedes have superseded them to become title contenders. I think it's important to say that almost like a toxic relationship, Leclerc's commitment towards Ferrari, no matter how bad it gets and no matter how long they continue to underdeliver, is basically ironclad. In 2024, Leclerc signed a contract extension with Ferrari, which was marred in secrecy as to exactly how long it was, but officially the drivers with the longest contract are Verstappen and Piastri, who have deals that expire at the end of 2028. However, Leclerc's contract, although not official, has multiple extensions and has been rumored by multiple media outlets to run even longer until the end of 2029. Whilst there has been plenty for Ferrari to improve off-track with their management and also the operational side of the team as well, Ferrari has never been able to build a car that is both fast in qualifying and the race, as well as consistent across a whole season. In 2022 and 2023, although they had plenty of pace in qualifying, their tyre wear was notoriously terrible compared to the Red Bull, and the car was also very unstable at the limit. For 2024, the team managed to engineer out some of those vices that made the car less competitive on the Sunday, whilst still maintaining a good level of raw performance in qualifying. But they also got lost during the mid-portion of the season with their development, which again just put them on the back foot in their fight with McLaren. The key issues that Ferrari have ran into this year has been primarily that their car doesn't have enough downforce and it isn't fast enough in qualifying. Because of how tight the front of the grid is, and coupled with the fact that overtaking is incredibly difficult in dirty air, these two things combine to leave Ferrari almost stuck at the back of the top 4 pack. It's worth noting that so far in clean air, Ferrari have been very competitive. Lewis in the Chinese sprint practically dominated the race from pole position, and even Charles in Saudi Arabia, in the final stint when he had fresh tyres and clean air, his pace was every bit as good as Verstappen and Piastri out front. Despite bringing a floor upgrade in Bahrain, which was already in development before the season even began, the performance gain was just marginal at best, and the SF25 also suffers from what a lot of the teams have ran into, which is a very narrow operating window for their car, and with small changes in track condition and setup changes also having a very disproportionate effect on their performance. This was the one year with half an eye on 26, and with how strong they finished the 24 season, where having a strong start would have been absolutely integral to fighting for the World Championship, because by the time you get to the summer break, some of the top teams are going to have to stop developing their 25 cars and will ultimately fall out of the title race. Ferrari have been adamant that with how long the season is that they are not even close to stopping development on their 25 car, and in Leclerc they do have a driver who's more than capable of winning the World Championship. But after 3.5 years of this regulation cycle, compared it to his contemporaries like Max, Lando, and even Oscar now, it seems like yet another frustrating year in the career of Charles Leclerc, and yet another year where potentially midway through this season, he is going to have to hope for another change in fortune in 2026. Well, there you have it. If you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would be massively appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.